excited about our guest today, who's been patiently
Yes,
in the green room,
you.
chowing down on those red M&Ms that he asked for. No, so
Jody Anderson.
Super stoked about this. So Jody's the first person who's asked to be on the show. He reached out to me, said, "Hey, if you ever need a guest, man, I'll come on." This was back in the spring, and I'm like, "Hey, man, we find a spot." I'm sure he thought I was blowing him off, but I wasn't. I had in mind this perfect spot for him to come into. I will say at this point now, he's not the only person who's said, "Hey, I'll come on." And so the Lord's been a blessing and opening doors for us. So we're so glad of that. But Jody's bringing a unique perspective.
Amen.
Phenomenal, not just ministry, but business. And just incredible. But inside of it, I think gives such an insight of discipleship. Shirley, would you introduce our guest and we'll bring him in?
Yes, because, we're talking about discipleship and in our own neighborhoods. And Jody Anderson of Apartment Life joins us for real life disciple making. Jody shares his powerful testimony that brought him to be a regional president for Apartment Life. He launched the OZARK region almost 3 years ago. And Apartment Life is a faith-based nonprofit organization that has been serving the apartment industry since 2000. They believe every individual is created for community and that we are called to love our neighbors as ourselves. Welcome, Jody. Oh, can't hear you.
Oh, man, looking good, but we can't hear you. And not Jody's fault. How we have it set up, it's sometimes our guests don't get to test their audio. They just get to test their video. So
just move your down at the bottom. You should see the microphone.
Yeah, he's not muted. It's going to be something in the in your audio settings.
Yeah, let me.
I'll start. Choice maybe.
My husband and I. You talked about this last week, Jake, and my husband and I have, I feel much more of an experience of revival in the simple mud hut church of Togo. Yes, I do, West Africa, than I ever had in any church.
Let me try this.
Too.
There we go.
Yes.
How about we just take the headphones off? Let's just do that.
Yes, Jody, welcome.
Thank you.
I have to tell you this. This is my husband and I, the Lord put it on my heart about 4 years ago to start praying about moving south.
Yeah.
And my husband finally got on board to pray probably less than a year ago. And my son is down there. My son is down there now. Well, I've been praying. This is the backdrop. So last week, I just came back from North Carolina. I was down there for 10 days. Love it. So Jake, I'm walking around the apartment complex where my friend lives with her dog before last week's show, Jake. So I'm looking at everybody and I'm saying hi to everybody. I'm like, this would be a perfect place to have a ministry. Yeah. And I would just love to minister to people and maybe have a Bible study. And oh, how cool it would be to have a dog show for everybody who owns a dog. And then I get on and Jake goes, oh, next week we're having, I can't remember the name of it, but it's about apartment living. And I'm like, no way. I went and looked you up. My husband and I have both applied for Charlotte. I'm not saying that we're going to get it. Don't know, but
yeah, of course.
Oh, God works.
Yeah.
I would never have thought Stanford would come through like this, and here we are. And I looked into it, and the ministry is phenomenal. The heart of the ministry. So, Jody, please tell us your background, your testimony, and how this came about.
Yeah, I will say, honestly, I would be surprised but at this point, nothing surprises me anymore, how the Lord brings people into this ministry, to be honest with you. Like, I'm not shocked by anything anymore, so it doesn't surprise me one bit. I think it's amazing. So honestly, I grew up in Texarkana, which is a border city in Northeast Texas, Southwest Arkansas. And grew up really, honestly, as a latchkey kid, single mom, and got in a lot of trouble. To be honest with you, I had a pretty troubled upbringing, lots of absence of fatherhood and just, all of the different things that come along with that. But got involved with drugs and alcohol when I was really young. So about 10 years old was the first time I ever smoked marijuana, and that led into other drugs by 14. And from 14 to 20 years old, my life became try to go to school and then figure out how you're going to get high, get drunk, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
And at 20 years old, I'd already been in several rehabilitation centers and 28-day programs, 90-day programs. And I would see folks, I'd be probated by the courts to go to like NA, AA, that kind of thing. And I would go and see folks, in their 60s, just white knuckling it, having to make 3 meetings a day. And I don't have anything against NA or AA. They do a lot of great things for a lot of great people. But for me at 19, 20 years old, it affirmed hopelessness in me. I'm going to be 3 times my age, like still dealing with this. Like, what is this? And,
Yes.
and for me, it was just like, I'd rather just die doing what I'm doing than be struggling 40 years from now with the same issues. And so 20 years old in August, 2006, I got my 3rd DWI. So if you get 3 DWIs in any state, you are a felon. And I got really lucky that I was across the border into Arkansas. And so the courts gave me an opportunity to either choose to go to prison or to join a program called Teen Challenge, which is a faith-based
Teen Challenge.
So I chose that. I went to Teen Challenge November 2nd, 2006. And at that point I was 20 years old. And 4 days later, I gave my life to Jesus and thought, shoot, I'll fake it till I make it. I don't know what this is about, but
fake it till I make it. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried everything else, so I might as well give this God thing a shot, right? So, but one of the things I'll never forget, Gary and Rachel Wallace were the directors of the ranch that I was at in East Texas, and they told me, Gary Wallace sat me down and said, I believe that you've been lied to. And I was like, what? And he said, I believe that your addictions are a symptom of a greater issue, which is sin. And if we treat the sin problem in your life with this man named Jesus, who's the answer to all things, then chances are you could actually receive freedom from your addictions as the byproduct of your sin. And that was the first time as a young man that I'd ever heard, I don't have to be that 60-year-old man white knuckling it my whole life. Like I don't have to be, struggling with this forever. I can receive freedom. And that was the first time I had heard that. And so that was hope restored, right? Like hope restored in me. And so I gave my life to Jesus that day, November 6th, 2006. And I did receive freedom. It took a while, but I still wanted to use for a long time. I still, struggled with temptation, but luckily I was under that Teen Challenge umbrella for 18 months where I didn't have access to the outside world. I was working really, really hard, doing physical labor on this ranch. Half the day we spent working, our tails off, and the other half was like Bible school boot camp, to be honest with you.
Yes.
And so I just started learning about scripture and applying it to my life, and it kept manifesting itself true in my life. And so by the time I was 10 months into the program, I graduated and didn't feel like I was ready to leave. So I stayed another 8 months on staff, counseling other young men coming through the program, trying to get them to stay, keeping them there. So that was like my first experience with like leadership. So when I got out, I at 18 months, I felt like the Lord was releasing me from Teen Challenge, and I moved to Fort Worth. Didn't know anybody. I didn't know anybody. My brother, who's 13 months older than me, we had been estranged for a while, was in Fort Worth, and he was in Southwestern Seminary, which is in Fort Worth. Yeah, so both of us came from just the worst upbringing ever, and are both in full-time ministry now, which is really cool. Yeah, so he's a pastor, and he's a pastor in South Carolina, and he's headed to Thailand as soon as they reopen due to COVID. But his family, four kids, another on the way, they're going to go be missionaries there. Wow. So, but yeah, so here we are. I'm in Fort Worth. Met my wife there. Been married now 12 years. We have 3 kids. We're a blended family. My oldest is 13. I have a 9-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son. But at the time in Fort Worth, we had heard, a few different times from friends like, hey, have you guys ever heard of this apartment life thing? We were like, yeah, that's cool. So we heard about apartment life first from some friends that were signing up to do it in Fort Worth. And they were like, you get like a big rent discount. It's really cool. So I was like, I'm trying to raise a family. Like I signed up. We signed up initially primarily for financial reasons. Like, oh, we get a 70% discount on our rent. Like, absolutely. Like, let's do it. And at the time I was working as a director of ops for an e-com company, and I was working a lot of hours. Didn't really get to see my kids very much. And so we signed up. We got placed at a property in McKinney, Texas, which was a couple miles from our church's church plant in McKinney, which I'll get to in a minute. But we only place teams within 10 miles of their home church because the idea is like we want to build a bridge back to local church because the local church is open door. So that's a big point of emphasis for us. So when we signed up to do it, within the first probably 90 days, we had already taken like 12 people to church with us. We were able to present the gospel to Lindsay and Rio, our neighbors, and are still connected with them to this day. And that was 7 years ago, but we're still really close with Lindsay and Rio. They came to church with us a lot. We explored God with our neighbors outside of the four walls of the church. And people are so much more receptive when you're not just inviting them to come to a building, but you're inviting them in a community where you belong before you believe. Like, we're trying to connect people, tangibly meet needs, be there for people in times of need, celebration, crisis. And it just opens up these natural, organic opportunities to share the love of Christ. And I was sold. Quit my job, came on staff with Apartment Life 6.5 years ago. And I've been a lifer ever since. And I think what's most appealing about Apartment Life to me is, you mentioned that it's a business and a ministry. We call it a business-tree. And the reason why is because it's equal parts business and ministry. And both of them are equally important because they give us the opportunity to do the other side of the coin. So if we do ministry well, then we continue to build community, and it gives us more opportunities. It honors God. God gives the increase. We continue to get more properties by honoring God with the way that we steward our relationships, responsibility, finances, all of that. But then by doing the business side well, it doesn't matter if the owners we serve or clients we serve or management groups are faith friendly. We have standalone business value, and that gives us more opportunities to place missionaries in communities all across the country. So yeah, so I love what I do, of course. It's amazing.
Dude, your story is so incredible. I just know bringing hope to people that's hearing it. I mean, to go on that journey and to see God using you in something big. So Jody is the regional president that covers the area where I live and pastor. And so he called, left a voicemail for me just as a pastor, letting them know they're working in the area. And I've got this commitment now that I've been on the other side of ministry calling pastors, that I try to call people back. That's not something pastors do very good, if you don't know out there. But so I gave him a call back, and it was crazy because, one, I grew up 15 minutes from Texarkana, so I know the area really well. Went to Southwestern Seminary in Fort Worth. But we had just started this new initiative in our church to just go build relationships and start small groups. And you start telling me about Apartment Life. And so you'll probably set me straight on my understanding, but it's a business that where apartment complexes bring you in basically to love on the apartment, make it a better culture. But what you were telling me is like, so a couple or individuals can come, they're going to receive a discount on their rent. So basically being compensated. You're going to fund them to do gatherings and fund them to do what they're doing. And then they're going to have a built-in way to connect. So I'm like, so you're telling me, one, you're not asking me for money. You're just asking me for people. That's awesome. Secondly, you're telling me that someone can go get compensated and funded to do what we're trying to do and struggling to do already. I mean, there's two huge complexes just that the shadow hits our church. And it's a wall to get into. And you're telling me you could pay somebody to go in there? I mean, just unbelievable what you guys do. Can you set us straight a little bit on what I butchered on what you guys are about?
Yeah, so essentially we are the leaders in resident retention and satisfaction for the entire apartment industry in the United States. And what that means is that apartment owners have a difficult time a lot of times retaining residents because they're just living in apartments is transient living in a lot of ways. So their keys are, if we can increase our retention percentage and increase our resident satisfaction, then we'll make more money. And so apartment life, what we do is our program is designed to improve the net operating income of communities. So they hire us to provide them with a community building program designed around the resident life cycle, which I'll share about in a second. But essentially what that means is when people love where they live, they're more likely to refer their friends. They're more likely to post positive online reviews. They're more likely to share on social media. They're more likely to, have overall satisfaction surveys with higher scores. So when the retention does increase, resident satisfaction, everybody knows you look online to find out where you're going to live if you're going to be in an apartment. So if you have like reviews that say this place is amazing, they care deeply about us, they have this team here that hosts these cool events and like gets people together, then you're going to want to live there. You're also not going to want to change properties after a year of living there. Even if your rent goes up $50 a month, you're going to stay there because you're connected in vital relationships with the people in your
community. It's so people do want community, and that's what you are trying to do. And when I was at Joyce's apartment complex, I just saw the community there, and even the community itself, the people who run the place, send birthday cards to the people who live there. And I don't know if they're doing apartment life or not. I didn't ask, but I'm like, that is so cool. People know each other. People want to know each other. People hang out together. Hi, Sri Lanka. We had a pastor from Sri Lanka just come up. But tell us what, so for me and my husband, we wanted to ask, we're applying for, tell us the different positions that you're looking for. And we're looking for a coordinator position, North Carolina, what our job would look like. Because what you're doing, you want people, you want to fill these slots all over the United States, correct?
Correct. Yeah. And honestly, in the truest sense, it's the harvest is plentiful and workers are few. Like we have high demand for our program across the country from apartment owners, many of them not faith friendly, just secular business owners, but they see the standalone business value that we offer to them. Mm-hmm. So essentially what we're looking for is once we identify a property that wants our program, then we'll recruit and hire either married couple, a family, a single coordinator, or a 2-guy, 2-girl roommate team from a healthy, vibrant local church. We place them on site in the community. They receive a 67% discount in rent of a 2-bedroom apartment in exchange for doing things that flow naturally out of the missional life. So essentially what they do is the property provides this team, is what we call team or coordinators, with a list of everyone that moved into the community every month. We get to go by, knock on their door, welcome them to the community, invite them to the next event, find out how their move-in experience has gone. Hey, by the way, we go to church down the street. If you're interested in finding a place to worship, we'd love to invite you. We'd love to have you come with us. But essentially, it serves sort of 2 purposes. The first is we're gathering feedback from new residents to find out why they chose the property, how their move-in was, and we provide that feedback to the owners, the property owners, or management group. But for us as Christ followers to get a list of everyone that moved into the community every month and actually have a reason to be at their door, you're not like the weirdo Christians just knocking on people's door anymore. Like you have a reason to be there. We're the resident event coordinators, we just wanted to welcome you and get to know you a little better. So it's just like pure gold. So that's the first sort of step of this resident life cycle. The second is the property actually gives us a budget to host 2 social events every month. And we do like community brunches, pool parties, concerts in the courtyard, yappy hours, you name it, we've done it. Yeah, with the pups. Yeah. So it's really cool to just have 2 things. Again, you're getting the community together. They're doing these things to help people build relationships, because community is not just good for people, it's good for the bottom line for the property, right? Yes. But for us, we want them to be connected to a healthy, vibrant local church, because that's a great way for the local church to create a consistent presence in the community by serving alongside of the team, sending a community group out there to help them host that brunch. And when people ask, like, hey, why do you guys do this? Like, what is this about? Then we absolutely are like, hey, we do this because we love people. And the reason why we love people is because Christ first loved us. Can I share a little bit about that with you? It just gives us these organic opportunities to say, look, this is the reason why we're here, and this is why we do what we do. So that's the second part of the program. The third is what we call resident and staff care. And to be honest with you, that's just loving people well. Like, we believe that God sets the lonely in families, and he gives us opportunities all the time to meet needs, to celebrate people, to be with people during times of need, celebration, crisis. If someone has a baby, like, we're going to drop off a meal with a card. Hey, welcome your new addition. We know being a new mom is hard. Hit us up if you need anything, that kind of thing. But also just like someone has a job loss or there's a death in the family, like just being able to connect them with grief counseling or help them in times like where they might need, resources, or even just a phone call to say like, hey, we're here for you. If you need prayer, if you need anything, like, we just want to let you know that we're here for you. So being there, and the same thing with the staff, like property management's incredibly hard. So just dropping off like their favorite Starbucks drink, or like on their anniversary, just wishing them a happy anniversary, like remembering their kids' names, like those different things that we can do to be intentional about pursuing those around us, and serving them in practical ways. So that's sort of the program in a nutshell, is really focused around those, welcoming them, caring for them during times of need, and hosting these social events. And then naturally, you just get hundreds of opportunities to go.
It's a servant's heart. It's having a servant's heart. So what about somebody who wants to relocate and do your program? Will you help them if they know about churches, or will you help them find a church, a family church? So, I mean, things like that. That's the biggest thing with my husband and I.
Sure. Yeah, we're open to that, because I mean, we especially in like the Charlotte area, North Carolina, we have like 40 programs in North Carolina already, 40 properties we serve there. So there are a lot of churches that we're already connected to, and we have about 650 apartments that we serve across 31 states right now, in the US and Canada. And we do some consulting with some property owners and faith-friendly management groups in Northern Ireland as well. So we're sort of branching out into other areas, but COVID really illuminated the ability to do remote management for us as well. So like, we can say yes to any property that wants us, because how Jake and I connected is I was literally cold calling his church. Like, hey, I know I've looked on your website. It looks really cool. Your visions, like our visions kind of align, like on missional living, what we want to see, church planting, like you kind of get it. So I'd love to chat with you about like how we can sort of implant at no cost to the church, which is huge. Implant these people, missional couples in the community. It's like missions without a passport. It's literally in your backyard. And a lot of people and churches don't realize, like, over 90% of apartment communities, the residents that live there are not connected to a local church in any meaningful way. So these are like massive groups of underreached people in the shadows of our church, like Jake just said, that we have the ability to serve them well. And the beauty of it too is like, we don't even have to pay for it. The properties are paying for it all. Like, that's what's really makes it unique, is just that we can place people in these communities to do life with their neighbors, to love their neighbors in the way that Christ called us to, and it's really practical. Also, they can have other full-time employment, because everything they'd be doing is like on evenings and weekends when people are home. So if you have other jobs, like, that's totally fine. You can still be a team. So,
man, this is incredible. I'm glad we're having the opportunity just for people to hear about it, and maybe they could plug in as well. But what you said was it flows naturally out of missional life. But I would say, unfortunately, many of us don't have that natural flow.
yeah.
Could you kind of turn this a bit to just say, can I help us share a little bit more about that natural flow in our life? Because to me, we can see what you guys are doing, and I think it can trigger us. Like, me and my wife, we were very seriously considering this. I mean, we were like, this is great. Let's do it. And the Lord actually, it was just kind of like, no, this is not what I have for you. But then we're like, why don't we take some of these practices in our subdivision? Why can't we do some of these same things? So tell us a little bit more about just putting that natural flow in your life from what you guys have learned.
Man, that's great. So we have a term that we use, or a definition, so to speak, of missional living that says that we're going to live everyday life with gospel intentionality, so that we might both show and tell others what I can't remember the last thing, what living a life missional is in the everyday stuff of life, right? So like gospel intentionality, everyday stuff of life. So what that means is I think that when you think of missional living, like we almost see that as being reserved for like the elite Christians, right? Like those people that are they're on fire for Jesus, but like really a missional life is turning the ordinary person into an extraordinary spiritual contributor. And what that means is like, do you frequent the same Starbucks? Do you know the barista's name? If not, you should.
Yes.
Do you know your neighbors? Do you remember people's names from the first time you meet them? Like that is a simple act of intentionality that can make a profound difference in gaining the trust of those around you. Remember people's names from the first time you meet them. Call them by name the second time you see them, right? Like that is something so simple. Yeah, that we can, and people don't do it. So it sets you apart, and that we are called to be set apart from just the normal everyday people, right? Like we are a royal priesthood, a chosen people, right? Like that is incredibly important to us. So that simple thing, one thing that if you live in an apartment, something simple you can do, park on the other side of your community. So you're forced to walk through the community to get to your apartment. Chances are God's going to place someone at that mailbox for you to chat with. So we say eliminate the smile and wave culture. Eliminate it. Don't smile and wave. Put your stuff down and walk over there and have a conversation with someone, even if it's awkward at first. Those are some simple things that we can do just to be a little bit more intentional in building the relationships. And trust me when I tell you, like people are so hungry for community. They just don't know it yet.
Especially after COVID. Yeah. So we only have a few minutes left. So how can people get a hold of you?
So I can post, if you want to post my number, like I field calls all the time. My email, Jody Anderson, JODYANDERSON @apartmentlife.org. You can check out our website. It's www.apartmentlife.org. And I can also post my cell phone number is 817-201-0295. I oversee the Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Northwest Arkansas, Little Rock, Southwest Missouri, Wichita, Kansas area. So sort of everywhere the Ozark Mountains touch. But I'm also connected. I have colleagues all over the country. So if anybody's interested in not even just like serving with Apartment Life or hearing about how we're doing it or anything like that, but we have an entire missional living curriculum that we've created that is available. If you just ask, I'm happy to send that out to folks. All of our training's done on Right Now Media as well, so a lot of that is available to the public, which I'd be happy to share. And so we just want to not only just build a community of believers that are intentional about living life outwardly, but to equip and resource people to do that well in their own communities, whether it's with Apartment Life or not. We believe there's this undertow of missional living and a desire to be sort of a passion generation that is doing things in a way that honors God, still equips people and brings them into the fold of the context of like traditional church, but also people are probably that never would walk through the doors of a church are open to exploring God outside of the context of organized church. So we just want to give people the ability to do that where they're at. So,
Jody, this has been tremendous. Gold, absolute gold, man. Thank you so much. We do have the website address in the notes right now, and we will be adding the rest of your info there so they can reach out. I encourage everyone, get some compensation and do what you're called to do. That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
If you want to be found faithful, you need to be plugged into the Great Commission and you guys are doing it. It's just incredible. I mean, this is great. We'll have to do it again. But Jody, thank you so much.
Stay on
yeah,
when stick around. Don't.
Yeah, so we're gonna say bye and close it out. But if you stick on, we'd like to say hello before you sign out.
Thank you. Got it.
God
Jody,
bless everyone. Thank you, Jody. Please join us next week too for some more discipleship. And if you haven't watched Jake's teaching from last night, how long was it, Jake?
Oh, you're calling me out. I think it's 28 minutes. I passed the 25-minute mark, but I was trying.
No, it was good.
So I just want to tell a couple things. So we're going to continue walking through this. We've got a friend of mine, a pastor out of West Texas. Chris Driver is going to be on next week. So he is implementing some of these ideas in rural settings and working through discipleship in a way that can be replicated. I think it'll be an awesome conversation. But look up Apartment Life, get involved. I'm going to find out how we can get this missional training out to you as well. But one thing I want just to invite you to is I know when we talk about emails and email lists, it's just like, no, I get enough. But I am trying each Monday just to pour my heart and try to just, like I was sitting down one-on-one and sharing the deepest thing on my heart for you and that the Lord's revealing and working in my life. And we would love to invite to share that with you. So there in the notes, wherever you're viewing this, there is a link that will say to receive these Navigational Truth emails. Hey, please click on that. We're not going to blow you up. We're sending one a week. It's just me pouring out the heart. We're not promoting. This is just simply to stay connected and to just reveal some things that just maybe in settings just not able to do all the time. So please,
I love those
get involved in that.
I love those emails. So
Shirley,
go do that.
Thank you. Yes, do it. Do it. And join us next Thursday night and next Friday. Thank you.